This is the complete review of both Wilds of Eldraine Commander Precons.
I'm Mia, and I love shimmering lights in multiple colors.
I'm BZ, and I love a shelf full of shadows, and we're the Nitpicking Nerds. And if you want to support us, you can go to Patreon. It gets cool things like, I don't know, an entire brand new set, courtesy of people who support this channel. Not really possible without you. So if you want to go to Patreon, find the tier you like, you get exclusive content, you get a bunch of rewards in return, and you're helping us out directly.
Thank you so much, patrons. We're also sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you use the code
Nerds
at checkout, you can save 5% on your entire order. That's real people money on real stuff that you get to your door.
Speaking of real, DragonShield.com is real. It's an existent thing. You can go to the EU or the US link and buy sleeves, really good sleeves, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
From the source, and you're supporting the channel at the exact same time. And we're sponsored by Moxfield. There's an ad to come. You'll see.
And we're also happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today, and pets.
We've got 2 awesome Commander Precons to discuss today, and for each one of them, we're going to be talking about the following: the face commander, the deck's game plan, how good the deck is, the best reprints, the best new cards, 5 budget adds for the deck, 5 non-budget adds you could put in the deck, and then cuts that we'd recommend, because not every Precon is perfect. And the final note is that these decks cost about $45 for the blue-black one and $35 for the green one, which is the first one we're going to be going over, which is
Virtue and Valor. The face commander is Elivir of the Wild Court. You pay 2 green and a white for a 4/4 that says, when she enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a virtuous roll token to another target creature you control. And the virtuous roll token is, if you control another roll on it, you just throw that away because each creature can only have 1 roll at a time. And the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. And whenever an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So there's a little bit of card advantage here. There's a little bit of stats.
Yeah, you pump up one of your smaller creatures into your new best creature. Elivir's still there as the real threat, but maybe this immediate threat requires more attention from them. And then when it hits, you're drawing a card, and it just kind of is everything an Enchantress deck wants to be. This is a really cool commander that we have not seen in this exact form before.
I really like this because when you create the rolls, you have to attach them to a creature, a different creature each time. So it encourages you to go really wide, and then just encourages you to keep attacking, because all of these are getting pumped up by the rolls on everything else.
Yeah, so you're going big with one, and then you're going wide because you're stacking up. You're kind of going big multiple times on multiple creatures. It's pretty sweet, and there's some absolute banger creatures you can throw it onto. So this deck already going to be carried a little bit by the commander. But let's talk about the best reprints. First one is Umbra Mystic. It's 2 and a white for a 2/2, or is attached to permanents you control have totem armor. So if you have a virtuous roll token on a 1/1 with no abilities, let's say, and they Doomblade it, the virtuous roll token just falls off, dies, and then the creature is safe.
I mean, I think that provides so much protection, because I think these enchantment decks, they usually just build up on one big creature like Imperial Archangel or something like that. And it's so easy that if there's no pro black, pro white, pro whatever, it's so easy for them to die just really quickly.
Yeah, so that's $7. We also have Bear Umbra, which is $5, and it untaps all your lands when the enchanted creature attacks, and it has totem armor. I didn't intend for the first 2 to have totem armor, but they do.
And it's just good overall to keep that protection.
And also take extra turns when you attack with it.
Hall of Heliod's Generosity is another great one. $10. You could tap it to add colorless, or if you pay 1 and a white and tap it, you can take an enchantment card from your graveyard and put it on top of your library. That recursion is so tough to find in white sometimes, so that's really good. That's repeatable.
Yeah, it's on a land slot, so you really don't lose anything. It's pretty sick. It's a staple of enchantment decks, so I'm actually glad that it's in the Precon, because there's no upgrading this card out. This is in the most tuned version of this deck, so I'm glad it already starts in. Same is probably true of Mantle of the Ancients. It's $6, and when it enters, you throw all of your auras from your graveyard onto the enchanted creature, and now it's just humongous, and it's going to annihilate people.
I think that's great, because you're going to be packing so many cool enchantments in there, and it's just going to stack so well. I mean, you could just ignore the equipment part.
Yeah, the only sad thing about Elivir is this isn't alchemy, so the virtuous rolls don't go anywhere after they leave the battlefield. They can only exist on the battlefield, so you can't get any of those back, but you're still just going to get back all your nonsense.
Yeah, but you're going to be playing these precons probably in a combat-based meta anyways, so when you attack, you're just going to get another one, so if your creatures die and you bring them back, I don't think it'll be too tough to put them back on.
Yeah, Mantle of the Ancients, it does basically a virtuous roll impression anyway, because it gets +1/+1 for each aura on it.
Yeah, that just stacks so well.
Yeah, and then Retether, $6. It's the same thing virtually. It's a sorcery that returns all your auras into play. The thing I like about this one is they can enchant anything as long as they're enchanting a creature. So there's going to be a gigantic swing. If they don't stop your Retether, the game's probably over.
Yeah, I think that these are going to be like the enchantments are going to come down really cheaply, and then you get your board wiped and you go, oh, well, okay, here we go again. And, it's going to just build up really, really fast.
And we mentioned before that this Precon's only $35. The cards we just mentioned are $35. So there's your value, and that's only 5 cards, so it kind of just seems like the rest of the Precon is straight up gravy.
And there's some amazing new cards in this Precon, too. One of them is Unfinished Business. 3 white for a sorcery that says you can take a creature card from your graveyard, put it back on the battlefield, then take up to 2 target auras or equipments from your graveyard and attach it to that creature. That's a lot of value. Getting your 2 best auras and your best creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield for 5 mana.
Yeah, probably your 3 best permanents for 5 mana, like... Okay, this is a staple of Aura decks. I think Aura decks with the Abzan Enchantments Precon and this Precon back-to-back are just going to be like juiced up to the extreme. That's what I think of with this deck. I also think of the next card, which is Moxfield.com. When I build my green-white Auras deck, and when they release 3 more Precons back-to-back that are also green-white Aura Precons, you can go, wow, I can sort, tag, and even shop through this app. Moxfield.com, best way to build a deck online, easily.
Absolutely. Moxfield.com actually has the decks up there right now, and they haven't even hit the shelves yet.
Yeah, they have the Wizards of the Coast account that just posts the official Precon lists. We're using them for something else that you'll see a lot later. It's pretty cool, though.
I love Moxfield.com. When we're doing research for these, we're always looking at those lists to figure out what's in the deck and what we like the most.
Yeah, Moxfield's great. You need to use Moxfield. Maybe if you use Moxfield, you'll get a brand new set as well.
And maybe if you follow us, you'll also get a brand new set. We're trying to hit 10K.
Look, there's a 0% chance if if you follow us, that'll happen. You never know. You never know. Just like with Loneclafter Fawn. I said that wrong, but oh well. 2 green for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you can discard 1 or more land cards, and when you do, return up to that many non-land permanents from your graveyard to your hand. So if I play this 3-mana 3/3 and I discard 3 lands, I can get back an enchantment, a creature, and an artifact from my graveyard, which is not card advantage, but it's card quality, it's card filtering.
I've really liked these cards lately. There have been so many new cards that have said, like, return that many target non-land permanents, and that's so good. You're usually not getting the lands back unless I blow up your Field of the Dead. But I think it just makes it very versatile to actually play these cards. I think this can go in more than just enchantment decks. I think this has a spot in a lot more decks, and this is going to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I don't even think of enchantments with this. I think of landfall. I got 6 extra lands in my hand. I have landfall draw a card on the board, and then Lonecrafter Fawn's going to turn all these cards into, like, actual spells I can cast. Songbird's Blessing is the next one. 3 and white. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit an aura. You can put that card onto the battlefield. If you don't, put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Okay, we're now cheating auras again. And if you have very few auras in your deck, I guess this is a little bit of a combo. I don't know if I'd recommend that. Just get value. Just basically draw a card and cast it when you attack with something.
4 mana, cheating out that many auras, that is just so much value.
Yeah, but let's take the value and lessen it. Let's go to some budget ads. You want to upgrade this deck, but you don't have $1,100 to spend on it. Get some budget ones for you. Satyr Enchanter. It's simple. 3 mana, 2/2. It's an enchantress. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card. It's like 5 cents.
Verdurn Enchantress, 1 green, 0/2. When you cast enchantment and draw a card just like the last one, you're just going to be drawing so many cards every time you play an enchantment, and you're just going to keep your hand filled the entire game.
Yeah, these green-white decks need a critical mass of enchantresses so that you always have one every game. I think, I don't know, like 12 was the number or something like that, so make sure you have them. I don't know if this Precon has a ton of them. Heliod's Pilgrim is a tutor for auras, and this is like a cute budget way to find tutors and always have your best aura without spending all the money on like Enlightened Tutor.
Unquestioned Authority is another great one for these combat metas. 2 white, when it ETBs, draw a card, and the enchanted creature has pro all creatures. So, you're just going to swing in for all that damage, and it's really, really great.
Yeah, it's perfect with if you already have a Virtuous Roll token on something, you can throw this on after. I think it has to be in that order because Genevieve can't, I don't know, that might not be her name. She has to target, and it's a creature, but whatever. You put it on after the Virtuous Roll. Now it's huge, smacking through a bunch of damage, or you can always just throw it on a blocker, plan to suit it up later with something, and just have a perfect blocker that can't die.
Brilliant Restoration is the last one we have for this. 3 white for a sorcery that says return all artifacts and enchantment cards from the graveyard to the battlefield. We're getting so much recursion in a Selesnya deck. I think that's crazy and amazing.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to keep you down. You don't need Replenish anymore. That card's great, but it's $1 billion, and this is, you pay 3 more mana for it and a lot more white pips, which isn't that big of a deal, and then you just get the same effect, and you just go, oh, that was neat.
Yeah, there's some ways you can make extra mana with certain enchantments, like some I think we'll include, and some that also just come with the deck. So I don't think hitting that 3 and quadruple white will be too tough.
But if you're looking for non-budget ads, we got those too. Let's start with Calyx Guided by Fate, the card you already forgot existed. It's $15 and it's 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever he or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and when he or an enchanted creature you control hits a player, you can make a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control, and you can do this only once each turn.
That's really, really good. We're going to pack this with our best enchantments and just putting them on, like stacking them. Also, are the Virtuous Rolls legendary? Can you make a copy of them?
You can make a copy of them, but they have to go...
On a...
No, they wouldn't
no.
even... You just
No.
make a copy. Yeah, you just... Yes. Everything, they work. They work perfectly. You can throw Virtuous Rolls, but you just can't stack them on the same creature again.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. So we figured out Calyx. No one's ever read this card before, but I think it's going to be pretty good, and it might even go up. So if you're like really going to play this deck, maybe just scoop one.
Yeah. Undo Spirit Dancer for $4 is a little bit more budget. For 4 and a white, a 3/3 that says when an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you can create a token that's a copy of it, but you only do it once each turn.
Okay, that's a bare minimum, another Virtuous Roll.
That's really great, though.
This card's silly.
I mean, it comes down so early at only, turn 5, especially if you don't ramp, and then you're just making doubles of everything.
It's really good. Flash Auras also make this kind of silly. I guess this will come up because I have a deck that's all focused around enchanting a Shroud creature, which is not really possible, but when auras enter the battlefield or are put onto the battlefield from your hand or from the graveyard or just from your library, they don't target. So you can enchant a creature that has hexproof that your opponents control with something like Undo Spirit Dancer. If I have a Kenra's transformation on somewhere else, I can go, all right, play it. Now I have a copy of it. I'm going to put it over here on your hexproof creature. It does work, and it's very silly.
This Precon and the Abzan one in the last set has given that deck so much juice. I think you're just rebuilding it.
I'm so ready. Well, let's go to Yenna, Red Tooth Regent from the new set. $5 for 2 green for a 2 green white 4/4. And she says 2 tap. Choose a target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If the token is an aura, untap her. Then scry to activate only as a sorcery. Untap her? I can just keep doing this for all my auras as long as I don't copy the same one?
Dude, we're going to have so many copies. You're going to play one aura, you're going to have like 4, and they're like, oh, again? Where are you putting that one?
I have 3 good auras. I have 6 mana, so here they are again on other things. Oh my god. Yenna looks really silly. I think you definitely want it for this deck.
Oh, absolutely. Exploration for $10 is another great one. Green enchantment, you can play an additional land on each of your turns. That's going to help you ramp. That's going to help you hit like that Brilliant Restoration white mana. You're just going to get everything you need from it.
Yeah, the bottleneck for Enchantress decks is the amount of mana you can spend. You can draw cards all day. Every one of your little enchantments cycles and draws 6 when it enters and when you cast it. You got all the enchantresses, but you don't have enough lands to play them. So exploration is like super critical to those decks, I think, and it's only $10. As is this next card, Burgeoning, $15. It's green, and whenever an opponent plays a land, you can put one from your hand onto the battlefield. I think these are like super necessary. They cycle real easily. They only cost 1 mana, and they just help keep you ramped. If you untap twice with these cards, you're just going to be so far ahead.
I really love the fact that these don't say basic lands, they just say lands. Mm-hmm. So if you have a like Hall of Heliod's Generosity or something, you could slap that down too, along with a land that makes color. So you're just good to go, and you have all this utility too.
Yeah, these cards are fantastic. They're like, I think, the most important ones. These are like number 1 and number 2 add, maybe after Enchantresses. Finally comes the stinkers. We got to cut cards. Every Precon has some head scratchers, some cards that don't fit at all, or some cards that just aren't that good. And the first one is Ox Drover. It's a 4 mana 4/4 Vigi. It can't be blocked by Oxen, and it gives away Oxen so that you can draw cards, but it has nothing to do with auras. And it's not even necessarily a staple. It's definitely not that good, so just forget it.
Palmbright Wings, 4 green and a white. The creature is flying, and when it deals combat damage, you create that many 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens. It gives it evasion, that's great, and it makes you go wide, but it's 6 mana, and you could be using that slot for something way better.
6 mana, no immediate impact. I don't know. The only thing it does is give flying, and you can get that for like 1 mana. Aura Gnarlid just gets really big when auras are in play, so if you already have auras in play, that means you probably have virtuous rolls, which means you already have gigantic creatures. So what do I need this for? Sometimes this is dead, and sometimes this doesn't do anything.
Yeah, Realm Cloak Giant or Cast Off, depending on which side you cast it on. Cast Off is 3 white to destroy all non-giant creatures, and 5 white for a 7/7 with Vigi. The creature itself is almost nothing.
What do I need
and
this
then
for?
a board wipe for 5 mana. That's just, we could do better.
Basically, if you're paying 5 mana or more for a board wipe in Commander, you have to be getting an asymmetrical effect. We have no giants.
No.
There's not enough giants in this deck for that to be a thing. Sylvan Ranger also just kind of tutors for a basic land, and I don't... Like, this is the easiest cut in the world. It's fine. Like, I like finding lands, but I don't need to put a slot in for it.
Yeah, it's not creature synergy in this deck. I mean, besides just actually equipping creatures, but then we can just put better creatures that synergize a lot better.
It is now time for the second precon. This is Fey Dominion, commanded by Tegwil, Duke of Splendor. I think I said that right. 1 blue-black for a 2/3 flying death touch legendary fairy noble. Other fairies you control get +1/+1. And whenever another fairy you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
I am so excited that this came out. Fairies have not gotten that much support lately, and I know a lot of people who have wanted to play fairy decks. So I'm so happy that we have like a dedicated fairy commander now.
Yeah, well, Fairies has had like fairy cards, but they were before this big commander push, so none of them were scaled towards multiplayer. Fairy Mastermind was good, but like the Lorwyn fairies, most of that stuff doesn't really cut it, especially the commanders. It's like, I don't know, you could play Nimrus, but that's not like a fairy commander. Finally, we got one. And we're going to go to the reprints, which are pretty good. It's Brazen Bar was the first one, $8. 3 mana, 3/1 flash, flyer, can't block non-flyers, and you can pay 2 to adventure it before you cast it as a creature to bounce something.
I didn't realize this was $8. I remember playing this in like Cube on Arena and that sort of thing, and it's so good, but I didn't realize it jumped up to that much.
Yeah, it's modern play. It's a pretty good card, so it's a little pricey.
Next is Glenolendra Archmage for $8, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer, and if you pay a blue and sack it, you can counter target non-creature spell. And it has persist, so if it dies, it can come back with a -1/-1 counter on it if it had no -1/-1 counters on it prior.
Yeah, this card's super annoying. If you just leave it up, what are they going to do? They're just going to be sad and have to play into it, and when they cast an instant or sorcery that doesn't matter, you just go, oh, it resolves. I'm waiting for the board wipe that I don't want to happen.
I really like these rattlesnake cards, as some people might call them. You know, like Perplexing Chimera is another one of those.
They just kind of sit and play, and they're like waiting for you to make a mistake.
Yeah, you like look them in the eyes, and you're like, all right, your turn.
Sign of Blue is $7. I was surprised at $7, but it's 2 and a blue for a 1/1 flash flying. Other fairies you control get +1/+1, but also other fairies you control have Shroud, so there's no targeting them.
Kindred Dominance. $5 right now, just recently got a reprint in Commander Masters, but still a great board wipe for these type of decks. Sorcery for 5 black that says you could choose a creature type and destroy all creatures that aren't of the chosen type. This is what we mean when we say that the board wipes that cost 5 or more mana need to have some sort of payoff.
Yeah, oh great, none of my creatures die, and they're all basically unblockable since there's no creatures to block them because they all just died. Kindred Dominance gets the job done. Formerly $28. I'm super glad to have it again. I hope it's like a $2 card eventually because it's really good, but I'd love to have a lot of them. Secluded Glen, $5. It's just a fairy dual land. Reveal fairy, it's a dual land. I was honestly surprised they put this in here because it's a land that costs more than $1. But good for you, Wizards.
Yeah, I'm actually happy that they're like dollar by dollar, they're increasing the mana base, and you know,
slowly.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
How about the best new cards? The first one is Malleable Imposter, 3 and a blue for a 0/0 flash flyer. We just keep iterating on clone, and it's better every time, and I don't even know if they're good enough to see play. But anyway, this is a clone, but it's a fairy shapeshifter in addition to its other types, and it has flying. So we get stunt double, except it has flying, and it's a fairy shapeshifter. So like 1.5 upsides. This is one of the better versions of clone now. We just keep making it better. So soon, I think, maybe this one is the one that just starts seeing like staple level play.
I mean, I'm a sucker for clone effects. I think they're really, really fun, especially in the lower levels, where you can just go, oh, I don't know what my opponents are playing. Let's see. Let's find out later. And just being able to get the best ETB effect just from any of your opponents is really, really good. I hate the ones that always say, you know, just a creature you control. So this is very like,
the flash makes it so that you get a lot more options. You're like, on average, if you just take clone versus clone with flash, stunt double, the stunt double is going to enter as a better creature like half the time because you get to wait an entire turn cycle to play something. Misleading Signpost, 2 and a blue. This one sees a lot of talking about this one. Artifact with flash, ETB. During the declare attacker step, you can reselect something that a creature is attacking, and you taps for blue, so it's a mana rock. more cute and fun than good, I think. But it's a card a lot of people are talking about. It's a really cool design.
I'm not sure if I'd put this in any of my decks personally. I think it's one of those gacha cards where I'm not that interested. I know you're usually not that interested in gacha cards, but I think that if you're playing some 3-mana artifact ramp anyways, I think that this might be a good thing to just try out, see how you like it.
Yeah, you can't be too mad at this. I mean, I'm playing Midnight Clock all day first. Maybe you throw this in the other slot, and then you have definitely gonna have some fun with it. Blightwing Bandit, 3 and a black for a 2/2 flying death touch. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top card of their library, then exile it. I don't know why we can't just exile it, but you can play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and then spend mana of any type. I wish there was a faster way to say that, like, confiscate the top card of their library, and then that's all just implied. But for now, we get 8 sentences.
I think that this deck as a precon is kind of split between like two schools of thought. There's the fairy dedicated deck, and then there's like the Nimrus type deck where it's just like you want everything with flash.
Like all 3 of these cards, pretty much?
Yeah, so I think these are good, but if you're keeping the commander whose name I can't remember at the moment.
Tegwill.
Yes, if you're keeping Tegwill as the commander, you might want to switch these out for a couple things, and if you're putting in the new Alayla, this might be better.
Time for some budget ads. What's the first one, Mia?
First one's Sprite Noble. For 1 blue, you get a 2/2 flyer that says other creatures you control fly and get +0/+1, and if you tap it, other creatures you control fly and get +1/+0 until end of turn, though. It's basically a Fairy Lord. You get that little bit of extra toughness if it's just statically out on the field. If you tap it, you just get a little bit of extra power in the air. That's amazing.
Yeah, all these creatures are going to be fairies, obviously. We want to stack the deck full of playable fairies. Like Vendilion Click. It's 3 mana, 3/1 flash flyer. Enters the battlefield, look at someone's hand. Could be you, could be an opponent. Take a non-land card from it, then they draw a card. And the card goes on the bottom of their library. So it's like a weird Thoughtseize. They go even on cards. It's not the most offensive thing in the world, but it's just, I think, solid value. You can even turn a dud in your hand into a new card.
Yeah, I think that's just really funny, though, if you announce, you go, I'm going to look at a player's hand. It's going to be mine.
I'll choose myself. That used to be a thing in Modern when you cast Vendilion Click. They would, like, do something in response, and you're like, no, I wanted me. I wanted me, actually.
Yeah, if I ever play this, I'm definitely going to do that, just to get a new card.
Just to get under people's skin.
Oh, absolutely. Notorious Throng is next. It's 3 and a blue for a sorcery. That's a rogue-type sorcery. That's Prowl for 5 and a blue, and you create X/1/1 black fairy rogue creatures with flying, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn, and if the prowl cost was paid, you actually take an extra turn? That is the payoff that we were like really looking for when we said they had fairy cards, but there wasn't like actual fairy commanders to go with it.
Yeah, this doesn't necessitate a fairy commander, but it's certainly a lot better if I can pump my fairies with Sprite Nobles and whatever else is going on. I make 12 fairies, take an extra turn for 6 mana, and then just crack you again for like way more than 12.
Yeah, that creates so many fairies, and that's just so many fairies to die, which just gets you lots of cards.
Yeah, Fairy Artisan's classic fairy. Whenever something enters under your opponent's control, you get a copy of it, and you only keep the most recent copy. I think this is just like a staple-y type of card. You can pretty much put it anywhere, but because it's a fairy, we're going to play the heck out of it.
Yeah, everything in Commander basically has ETBs, so you're just going to get the best ones every single time.
These days, the kids only play that enters the battlefield. Those nitpicking nerds are only talking about creatures that enter the battlefield and do something right away.
We're not talking, we don't want vanillas and we don't want Grave Titan before you ask. Please look at the side.
Clearly, we do not want him. Stolen by the Fae. X blue, bounce a creature with mana value X. You get X blue fairies that have flying, but you can only pay X equal to the mana value of the creature. So if you want to bounce Glistener Elf, you can only pay X as 1 and you only get 1 fairy. You can't pay 1,000.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait to find that big juicy creature on the board and go, oh, I have 9 mana, here we go, and then just get like 7 fairies.
That's a tricky thing too. A lot of giant creatures, like we just kind of alluded to, we would want to do something right away, like a Tali or Avenger of Zendikar. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to bounce like a 9-drop, but you can bounce like a 5-drop, a 4-drop, something middle of the road, get a few fairies, and then they'll start dying and you draw cards.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about too with the ETBs. It might not be great to bounce them either, because
or bounce your own thing.
Yeah, definitely could work. It is target creature, not target creature an opponent controls.
Yeah, like if it said 6 mana, make 4 fairies, and get another ETB later. That's okay.
Yeah, depending on the ETB, I think it would be worth it.
All right. Time to dig deeper into the wallet. It's the non-budget ads.
Bitter Blossom, $20 for 1 and a black. It's an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying. With 40 life in Commander, this is actually going to be so good instead of like In this deck, at least, instead of like 1v1 where you don't have as much life to spare. I know you don't like this card, though.
Okay, so I basically hate this card in Commander. I think it's pretty bad, but I think definitely the Fairies deck pushes this over to like very playable. And you probably want a Fairy every turn. It's a crucial creature type. You care when they die. You care when they enter. You care when they attack. So I'm going to give this Bitter Blossom a $20 a pass.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you don't even like it in this, I don't know what you're thinking.
This is it. There's no other deck that this fits in better.
Fairy Mastermind, $5. I thought it was $20 for the longest time, and it just shot down to the ground, so I'm so happy for the price reduction. 1 in a blue for a 2/1 Flash Flyer. When an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. You could also pay 3 in a blue. Each player draws a card.
So much utility on this. It doesn't even ask anything of you. It's just a fairy, so we just play it.
Yeah, there's going to be so many cards drawn in Commander, so you get those 3 extra turns to just, rack up value. I think the activated effect is like really. I think sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really bad. If you have nothing better to do, you'll get those 3 extra cards, obviously, or 4 extra cards.
Yeah, if you're ahead, never do that. But if you're behind, it's just value and a chance to catch up where there wasn't one before.
Yeah, very situational, considering that is 3 cards you're giving away.
Right, but if you go end step, activate, each person draws a card, then the person whose turn it is triggers it, so you've now drawn 2 cards. But then if you activate it again, you get 3 more cards. Because the other 2 players will have now drawn 2 cards.
Yeah, that's pretty juicy. I love the fact that it's each turn.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Talion, the Kindly Lord, is $7. It's 2 blue-black for a 3/4 flyer. ETB, you choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with the mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. This isn't like game ending. This isn't like a stacks piece. It's just going to be, I think, good. I think 2, 3, and 4 cast such a wide net that picking one of those probably gives you a couple cards back. It's like Camball. It's one of those cards. It's like, oh, that's annoying, but you don't kill it. It sticks around.
Yeah, I think generally this is going to be good. There's so many things to hit in those lower ranges that are just utility, the Dranth Magistrates and the Dothies and like certain counter spells and stuff all at 2 just as an example. So you're just going to be pinging people here and there and then just drawing those cards. And you're just going to have so much card draw in this deck.
Yeah, Kindred Discovery also has dominance. We just talked about dominance. This is Discovery. It's the other Kindred D. $15 for a 5-mana enchantment. Whenever fairies enter or attack, you draw a card, and it's for each fairy. So we're talking Bitter Blossom, Notorious, Throng. All of this stuff is now big mega value town.
Are you sure you're going to have enough room in your hand for all these cards? I feel like 1 turn alone, you could get like 10.
Because of the big mana value town? And like, so great I can't even talk about it? Yes, I'm going to have too many cards.
Maybe get yourself a Reliquary Tower. Urza's Incubator, $22, 3-mana artifact, and when it ETBs, you're choosing a creature type, fairies, of course, and the creature spells of the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. That's a really big reduction.
Yeah, we got a lot of like these, we talk about these 4-mana fairies. They're pretty good, but you got to cast them. This just like doubles your mana when it comes to casting fairies. It's a must-have, I think.
With all that card draw, too, you're going to have a full hand, and you're going to need something to do with it. So even if you don't have a ton of mana, like ramp-wise, you can still get out a lot of fairies with this card.
Yeah, because you just drew 60 cards with Kindred Discovery and Fairy Mastermind. Now you need to play them before your turn is over and it's too late. But these cards, I don't think you want to play them. I think you actually want to cut them from the deck. Like Nightmare I'm making will forever be one of my least favorite board wipes. It's 3 black. I'm going to read this one because it's just so bad. You choose one. Exile each creature with power greater than the number of cards in your hand, or exile each creature with power less than the number of cards in your hand. So for this card to be good and a full board wipe, you have to have almost no cards in hand, which sucks for you. And I would love to refill my hand maybe if that was the case. And if you have lots of cards in your hand, this is uncastable garbage.
I think the mass exile in blue and black is really hard to find, obviously, but I don't think this is worth it.
I think this is so horrendous, and neither half is good. I don't think you can tell me a number or show me a board state where that would be like, oh, finally. Nightmare I'm making, I was hoping to draw that.
I think this is also a... I think every once in a while this might be okay. If you're drawing a ton of cards, it might be a full board wipe considering there's so much card draw, but I think it's so situational that I don't think it's worth it to put in the deck.
Yeah, no, I have 50 cards in my hand and I want to remove all creatures. If I have 50 cards in my hand, I want to press my advantage.
Absolutely. Consider and opt are the next ones. For 1 blue, you can either surveil 1 and draw a card or scry 1 and draw a card. I think we have enough card draw in here to make it so that you don't really need these little cantrips, and you could put more fairies in or something that will give you more advantage to the commander itself.
Yeah, these cards are filler. They are good if you can get an extra advantage out of them. This deck can't do that. They're just 1-mana draw card with a little bit of upside. I think you can cut them for fairies or something that makes your deck more consistent or more explosive.
Yeah, we can just get the free draw by playing another cheap fairy or something that makes a bunch of fairies anyways.
Yeah, I mean, there's one from the new set that surveils 1 when it enters, and that's probably better than Opt.
Oh, yeah. Keep watch. 2 and a blue for an instant that says draw a card for each attacking creature. I think this is really rough to keep up that 3 mana for something you don't even know will happen if there's like a board wipe or something. Like, I think that's just a lot.
Yeah, and if you're going to play it on your turn, it doesn't really matter that it's an instant. Just play a card, even like Distant Melodies, that just gets you more cards on average. I don't like Keep Watch very much at all. Illusionist Gambit, okay, it just removes attackers from combat, and they have to attack somebody else. What does that have to do with fairies other than like flavor trickster points? I don't think it does anything.
Yeah, I hate the fact that this is cast the spell only during the declare blocker step on an opponent's turn. That's just like so niche. And
I mean, it only reselects attackers. You don't want to reselect your own.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, that was just like a niche sentence, and then like in general, the effect isn't that good for 4 mana too.
But never let them know your next move if that could be cast on your turn. Next, Thrilling Encore. 4 to black, put onto the battlefield under your control all creatures in all graveyards that died this turn. Are we trying to do this? I don't think so, right? I mean, even the board wipes like Nightmare Making doesn't even destroy.
Yeah, I think that, again, 4 and a black is just like a lot of mana to keep up for just in case there's a board wipe. And especially if it's a board wipe that puts things in graveyards. If you're getting hit with a farewell, this doesn't matter, and you put up that 5 black mana for nothing. It's
a lot to hold up for such a swingy effect, and even when you pass with this mana up, the board state might not even be that good, so then you won't want to do it, and it's just, this is a card that'll rot in your hand, and then like 1 in 6 times you draw, it'll be fantastic, so you only think about that 1 out of 6 times. But if there's things you really want to think about, not 1 out of 6 times, I would say 6 out of 6 times, there's an entire Precon review for the previous set, Lord of the Rings. Maybe you've heard of it. There's a whole Precon review, and I think you'd be better off for watching it.
Yes. And here's a tip for the day. Make sure your cats aren't clawing outside of the set.